Good morning. Good morning. Apologies. It's hard to have Sunday morning coffee with Karen without coffee, huh? So I do apologize that I am a wee bit behind schedule. I also had a board meeting. I need to remember that on the days that I have board meetings, I'm on the board for this orphanage in Uganda, where we have these awesome kids in the school and all these things, but we have our board meeting the first Sunday of every month at 9 o'clock. So I need to remember that on those weeks that we need to move this live stream to 10:30 or 11. So hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to Sunday Morning Coffee with Karen, episode 27. Today's live stream is actually, we're gonna get some Palo Santo. I'm like feeling very frantic over here just because I was already running. I ran late to that meeting and then I'm running late here. So let's just zen back into our space, huh? So here we go. Have some Palo Santo up in your space if you guys are already having a kind of frantic Sunday morning. And even if you're not having a frantic Sunday morning, Palo Santo is just delicious. So today's episode is actually inspired by a question that Marina had last week. So everyone say hi when you pop on. It says there's 5 people, but it only showed me that Christina's watching. So make sure you say hi. I love to know who's on. It also helps me to more clearly channel what it is exactly that everyone who's watching, not only now but on the replay, will need as well. But it just, like, more interaction, the better this is going to be for everyone. Hey Marikar. So I'm going to actually take just 2 seconds and share this out onto my page and onto the group. Real quick. There we go. Shared. Okay. Good to go there. And then, so today's event, I know, that was so unprofessional of me, guys. I'm sorry. Today's event is about how to love somebody without liking them at all. And this was mostly due to a comment that Marina had shared about President Trump. So last week I was talking about how you need to find the balance of being able to still like everybody, okay? You still have to be able to, and it's not that you have to to be able to love everyone, even when you don't like them or you fundamentally just, like, don't agree with them at all. Hi, Instagram. We've started you over here. So this is a predicament. This is a predicament because we all have those people in our lives. And this time of year, especially in America, we have an election coming up. And I'm sure that even worldwide that everyone is aware of this election that we have coming up here in America. Because y'all be wondering if we're going to be keeping Trump around. So let's just not pussyfoot around this topic, okay? President Trump is not someone that I would ever want to be friends with, okay? We'll put that out there right now. I have zero interest in ever developing a platonic relationship with the current leader of the free world. I don't agree with a lot of what he, how he speaks, especially about women and about all those things. And yet, I'm really actually hilariously grateful for President Trump. I like that now it says that nobody's watching because now I'm talking about Trump, but you know what? Deal with it. He's your president for those of you in America. So let's just, like, start with that. It's the position of president that we hold in high regard. Therefore, anyone holding that position, regardless of who they are as a person, should also be held in high regard. I'm still here. Christina's still here. Hi. And I think that that's what throws everyone off is that they want to separate, currently, they want to separate Donald Trump from the presidency. And right now, you can't do that. He's being actually, he's one of the most fearless and authentic leaders that I've ever actually watched. Maybe not fearless, but at least shameless. Let's go with the word shameless. He's one of the only shameless presidents I've ever watched, which is why I don't tend to use the word shameless. I tend to use the word unshameable, as in you can't give me shame. I got my own shame that I can deal with, versus someone who's shameless, like that's just narcissistic. Sorry, I'm like making my coffee over here. Don't mind me. And so I would be that person. Let's backtrack. When he was elected, I literally stopped nursing my son. I was that mad about it. And my son was showing a lot of those, like, I don't know, drive-by nursings, felt very, like, entitled to being able to nurse whenever he wherever he wanted, because I didn't know how to separate my emotions towards Donald Trump being my new president from my 18-month-old when I was also, like, pregnant, like, newly pregnant with my last baby. So I let an external circumstance such as Donald Trump becoming president actually affect whether or not I was nursing. And I used to joke about this all the time until I realized how, like, how that actually, like, how it actually played out, was that I became the victim of a lot of that. I let myself be the victim of a lot of that propaganda, a lot of that anger, because I had spent most of 2016 campaigning for the Gary Johnson campaign for libertarians. So when Trump won, it was like such a hard hit because he's the opposite of a libertarian. So for me, like, I was willing to take Hillary over Trump, and I did not like anything that she stood for either. So it took me a long time to actually get to where I am now. Now that it's been 4 years, I consider him like a black light, okay? You like a black light. Like, the idea of a black light sounds like a good idea, right? But not if you're wearing a black shirt, a black sweater that when the black light turns on shows all the tiny little pieces of lint, right? Or how they use black lights in sleazy motels to show, like, all the nastiness on the sheets still, right? That's what I think of when I think about Donald Trump now, President Trump now, is that he came in, like, he fulfilled his promise. He drained the swamp. He got rid of a whole lot of people. Yeah, he hired a whole lot of people and got rid of them. Like, so how do you rectify that? How can I sit here when 4 years ago I literally stopped nursing my son because I was so angry at the chauvinistic, maleistic, patriarchal, honestly, a lot of the stuff that I see y'all posting about patriarchy and masculinity is exactly how I felt 3 years ago, which is exactly why like, if I ever heard him talking, I would literally turn off the TV. I would hide underneath my blankets. I would mute it until he was gone. Like, I couldn't even look at him. And then came mirror work, which you guys know is my favorite work. We're actually going to be on a radio show, like, later this month with Amy Hall, talking about mirror work and how important it is. But one of the fundamental ideas of mirror work is that you can sit down in front of a mirror, and at any time you can start to integrate. So it's based on Carl Jungian theory of shadow and shame and subconscious versus conscious, and accepting yourself as a whole person. So the reason why I can love Donald Trump, even if on a fundamental, like, I don't agree with his policies, I don't think he's a very nice person. Again, I wouldn't want to be his friend, but I can still love him unconditionally as if he was my brother, because I live by my own values of appreciating the Shiva and the Shakti. Shiva being the oneness of form and Shakti being the variation of all form. We are all one. We say that. Light workers y'all love to say that. I don't really like associate with myself with any of those things. Like, I'm just me. I don't have a title. Super conscious leader, that's my title. You want to put me in a box. I don't fucking like boxes, so I actually spent my whole life trying to get out of boxes, which is again why like it's hard to compartmentalize your feelings about someone. Because again, if Donald Trump's name wasn't on something and I read some of the like laws that he suggests, I wouldn't agree with a lot of them. But it's not because Donald Trump was the one who wrote them or who signed them. It's because I have values. Like, I posted my political quiz the other day, guys. Feel free. Like, you're not going to ever get me separated from political conversations. I don't know how to separate myself. Didn't I just say that? I am an extremely political person. I've been political since I was 10 years old. I gave my first ever speech in front of the state building, the state capital here in Salt Lake City, talking about criminal injustice and how unfairly affected the African American population, because a friend of mine had been wrongly accused of holding up a 7-Eleven, was sitting in prison for a crime he didn't commit just because he fit the description of the guy who had been there 5 minutes earlier and had actually robbed the 7-Eleven. So you can't, I don't separate. That's why you hear me also talk about like global leaders, people who see the like fundamental systemic issues in all of society. So my niche is the world. Like, no more poverty, no more bullshit, sex slave trade, all of those suffering things, all the things that so many people are out there falling on their swords, being freaking martyrs about, which is very, like, living in victim consciousness. Oh, this exists. Oh, he's a part of it. Don't you know that President Trump is a part of it? Like, I've heard all the fucking theories. I know all about the Masonic whatever, the CIA, Black Ops, and the sex slave trade, and all the stuff going on in New England. Like, I've heard it all. Like, there is probably not a conspiracy theory out there that I haven't heard. None of it fucking matters. That's what I really want to say. How we got to where we are doesn't fucking matter. And everyone spends so much time trying to point fingers, trying to place blame, trying to figure out where did it all go wrong, instead of being like, and now we're going to fucking change it. Now, there's a point of, like, you kind of need to know, like, how the problem's there so that you can undo it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about well, we're going to lose our whole country because these Republicans, blah, blah, blah. Like, go look at who actually showed up and voted, guys. USA has abysmal voter turnout because we've been tricked into believing that our vote doesn't count. And we've been taught that the Electoral College is what decides anything, except for, do you guys even know how the Electoral College works? Do you understand that if you were involved on a more, you didn't just show up once every 4 years to vote, you actually showed up at all the in-between years, you showed up to all the primaries, you showed up to your caucuses, you did all of that, you would actually have a chance to be one of the electoral votes? I live in Utah. We have never not voted Republican. And yet I am an extremely politically involved person. If anyone has a right to, has a voice to claim, I don't have a voice in Utah, I'm non-Mormon, I'm a woman who owns her own business, I'm not even any like actual religion, I don't come from a wealthy Mormon family and just like broke off, I've never been Republican, I've never been ultra conservative, I would have every, like, that's like all my friends I just described, and they don't vote. They literally just don't vote. We decided on medical cannabis here in Utah, and a bunch of my friends that smoke weed didn't vote because why shouldn't, if I get registered to vote, then they can call me for jury duty. Do you know how many people in the world would fucking love it if they had the jury system that we have in America where they get a jury of their own peers? Like, a ridiculous amount of fucking people would absolutely love I love jury duty. I've never actually been called for a jury, but I'm not someone who's like trying to get taken off of the jury, because I think it's my fucking right as a citizen and as a voter to be able to serve my country by serving on a jury, because that's what they intended when the fucking Constitution was written. But most people in America have never read the Constitution. There's so much anger out here when it's really look in the fucking mirror. So what I did to get over my issue with President Trump was that I got really stoned. And I forced myself to watch one of his speeches. It was really hard. And I wrote down all of the qualities that were making my skin crawl. Like, what phrase did he just say that made me want to turn off the TV? Okay, and like I press pause. Okay, so what is the overall energy of this phrase? It's like narcissist or shameless or egotistical or juvenile, or like all the imbecilic, total fucking moron, like all these things. And I sat there. It wasn't even a long speech, you guys, because I couldn't even sit through one. It took me a while to do it. But so I sat down, I chose a speech, couldn't remember, couldn't tell you which one it is. YouTube has them all. And I started writing down all of the things in the speech, all of the emotional quality, like what am I feeling right now as I'm watching him? What is the like characteristic that he's exuding right now that makes me want to literally throw up? Because that's how I felt when he got elected, right? I hated him. I hated anyone who voted for him. I hated the whole system. I hated the Electoral College, even though I understand it. How can Hillary win the popular vote and not? Because popular vote, like, if 51% of the population wants the Jews to die, then guess what happened during the Holocaust? Democracy is not the fucking answer. So, again, we live in a republic. And I know this is very focused on the U.S., but the rest of y'all have to deal with the fact that the United States doesn't teach their citizens how their country actually works, because then it keeps them in fear. Because the U.S. actually got all of our power by being isolationists. The American dream is to isolate yourself from the entire rest of the whole fucking planet and hope that nobody catches you by the time you have broken enough laws to make enough money that you then can pay lawyers off. That's the real American dream. Go be bandits, go kill whoever the fuck you want, go take whatever land you want, go make a name for yourself so that by the time the law enforcement come around, you can just pay them off. That's literally, like, go watch anything about how America was actually made. And then all of Europe is blowing the fuck up during the World War I. We were barely involved. The U.S. was barely involved in that war. World War II happened, same shit. We got we had a Hawaii got hit, the whole rest of the country, fine. Then you have the golden age during the 50s in America, because why? Because our country was the only country that could produce like more than 80% of the goods for the whole fucking world, because the world was at war and America was isolated and safe. Americans are the most entitled brats on the whole fucking planet because we don't understand where we came from. We're just a melting pot. We don't know how our laws work. We don't understand how our Constitution works. We don't get how our government works, how it starts in the precincts and then goes up. I go to my precinct meeting every year. I'm like the only person besides my precinct chair there. I've been going to my precinct meeting since I was 18. I am going to be 32 this year. That is like 14 years of being the only citizen that seems to show up and give a fuck about what's going on. Same thing with city council meetings. Americans don't get how our government works. So if the rest of you are wondering why America's so fucked, it's because we're literally not taught how to run our own country. And the only people running the country are the ones that have enough money to convince us that they know what they're doing when they actually have no fucking clue, because guess what? They weren't taught how to do it either, because it's a lot easier to keep the power. We're an oligarchy. We're not even like, screw it. We're not even a democracy or a republic. We're a fucking oligarchy. We have been owned by the same people for the last 120 years, ever since World War II. Ever since the time of Carnegie, 1913. Can we just like erase that entire year out of our law books? So you might be wondering, why are you ranting? It says about loving someone. Because this is what burns my fire, is that I love my country. Okay? So when the person in the seat that represents my country is someone that I fundamentally have fucking problems with, that's a problem to me. And I have to take the responsibility of figuring out what is it about that person I don't like. Because what it is about that person I don't like is things I don't like about myself. Okay? That's what I want to get. I know it took me like 30 minutes to get to this point. I had a whole bunch of engagement. People were like, oh shit, she's talking about Trump. I had to sit there and watch a speech he gave, write down all the characteristics that I didn't like about him, get over the fact that I was so angry that this was what my guides and everyone was telling me I needed to do. Strip down naked as I do for my mirror mantras, stand in front of the mirror, and I was mad. I cried. Like, it's not pretty when you're doing integration, mirror work integration. I can tell you that. If you're doing it right, it's not pretty. The whole point is to be able to neutralize any energy. So you sit there and you say to yourself, I am a narcissist. I am a narcissist. And if saying the word narcissist doesn't like do anything for you, then you go and you look up what the word narcissist like really means, and you start pulling. I am egotistical. I am selfish. I am selfish. I am fucking selfish. And you sit there staring at yourself in the mirror, dead in the eyes, crying your eyes out. I am selfish. I am selfish. I am selfish. I am the most fucking selfish person on the. I don't give a shit about anyone. And you start saying all the things that you say about the other person about yourself. Because anybody who you don't like, that you have. So the fundamental issue stuff, again, if I like erase the person, the author's name, and I just look law by law by law by law, that's how I create my values, right? I agree with this, I don't agree with this. For the most part, I don't care what you do behind closed doors. I just don't want to pay for it, right? I believe that you can have the right to have a gun. I just want you to have a universal background check first. Just things like this. Okay, and even then, universal background checks isn't a very libertarian thing, but a lot of libertarians can at least concede that, right? Libertarians are like almost anarchists, if you're wondering. You don't really need the government. So that's the other thing. Like, the government itself has its own fundamental flaws, but so many of us are either not taught how it works or are taught that only a certain few people can get into it, that we don't even like deal. We have to suffer the consequences of the government instead of getting involved. Career politicians and all that shit weren't supposed to be a thing either. Like, you serve your 1 or 2 terms, then you get out and you go home. So if there's anyone like this, maybe it's your own set, maybe you're fine with Trump, maybe you agree with me that he's actually done a little bit of good, if nothing else, to get more people involved. But it's like your mayor. You're just like, this fucking mayor, I see the budget every year, and they increase the spending for the police officers again. They're still not doing this. The schools are doing, like, they cut all the arts for the school system, whatever it is, right? And if you guys don't have a political thing that you are involved in, wake the fuck up. Your life is not so important that you're the only person that's in it. Your community needs you. Okay? Your not your online community here in like your actual community where you fucking live. Get out, go to a city council meeting. Get out, go figure out who you're going to vote for in November. Get off your fucking lazy, entitled American asses and do something about the fuck-uppedness in this goddamn country. Because you all are sitting in fucking high-ass horses thinking it doesn't affect you, while simultaneously saying, but I want to change poverty, and I want to change the school system, and I want to get rid of sex slavery, and I want to do all this other shit. You can't do that if you don't know how the fucking laws work. You have no idea how many people come to me and ask me, how do I create an LLC? I don't know, fucking Google it, man. It changes per state, per country. It's not my job. Google exists. You're not a 6th grader. I'm not your mother. You want to change the world? Start by changing your own backyard. Start by changing your city. Start by changing your county. Start by changing your state. Start by changing your country. Start by showing that you care about anything else except for your fucking self. Because as far as I'm concerned, 90% of my feed is filled with a bunch of entitled people who say they want to change the world, but they really just want to fatten their coat pockets. And eventually all that power is going to go to their head and they're going to turn into their own isolationist oligarchies where they're kicking everybody out of their group for not agreeing with them. And they're not going to actually do any of the things that they said they were going to do because they don't have actual values. And you know your actual values by reading the laws and figuring out what you don't agree. Like, it's so elementary simple to me, and that's why I get so fiery and angry. My 11-year-old knows more about the Constitution than my 60-year-old neighbor. I don't know. I don't think he's 60. But, like... And all it takes is reading the fucking document. All it takes is deciding that you actually care about your country. But that means that you have to look in the mirror and say, I'm a patriot. I am a patriot. Do you know how long I, wanted to just move out of America? I was like, I'm done with America. Like, get me the fuck out of here. I am jumping ship. Like, all those celebrities that said that they were going to move when Trump got elected and, none of them did. It's because we have it fucking sweet here in America. There's a reason why everyone tries to come here. We have, remember the jury duty thing? That in and of itself, guys, if you actually go and do some research on how the criminal justice system is in other countries, just knowing that you have the right to a jury of your own peers should actually be a big reason why you want to stay in America. We have so many awesome things, but all the news ever does is just highlight this polarity, highlight the separation. And we do it within our own communities. How many spiritual, metaphysical leaders do you have coming on to their live streams talking about political shit? Like, honestly. Tell me in the comments. All these people, I don't know if you're here or not, but I'm going to give you a shout out. Allison, Michelle, Woozy, Alba, Geraldine, Beverly, Veroni, Stephanie, Cynthia, Christina, I still see you. How many people are willing to get onto their Facebook profile and talk about something that they're passionate about, like the education system being completely and totally fucked, and that I understand that I homeschool my children, but that doesn't mean that I don't also show up to school board meetings. My taxes still pay for the schools around here, so I still actually have a vested interest. And next year, I've told it to you guys before, next year that's all changing. My kindergartner wants to go to the kindergarten up the road that has French dual immersion as an option, and I think that's amazing. My 11-year-old is going to be in junior high next year, and he's got friends that are already in junior high. He wants to try out junior high next year. My littlest is going to a private school, but the year after that, she'll be going to kindergarten. So for me, homeschooling wasn't ever going to be I'm homeschooling all my kids from now until I'm 20. It's that my children have a choice because we live in America where they have freedom of choice. And for me, as a stay-at-home mom, entrepreneur who's here all the time, I wanted to absolutely give my children the choice of whether or not they're going to go to school or if they're going to have me teach them. And there's other schools that we've looked into. Unfortunately, Utah doesn't have any. We don't have very many private schools that aren't related to the Catholic Church, so I didn't want to do any of that stuff. And the charter school system, because Utah has really fucking bad education system, charter schools are it's just as bad as in the inner city in Chicago. It might when it comes to showing up to those things to roll call. There's like 500 people trying to get 30 spots. None. Yeah, none, Christina, none. No one's coming in here talking about dragons and politics or crystals and politics or how, right? So we all just want to love each other. So that's the reason why I wanted to do this live stream, because I talk about leadership, right? I'm constantly talking about leadership now with y'all. And we're all just going to be self-governing. We're not going to need a president. We're not going to need a council. We're not going to need a group of people that have decided that they're going to take the responsibility for the entire planet when the aliens come. We're just going to be self-governing. There's literally never, ever, ever been a civilization that didn't have some sort of hierarchy. Even just a little one. Even like where the whole tribe got together and had a board meeting. They still needed laws. They still, like, anarchy, there is, like, I have posed this question before. I will pose it again. If anyone out there can just find in the history books that there has been a civilization that has successfully lived off of anarchy, that didn't end up just fucking killing themselves within the first generation, please let me know. Because I am not someone who, like President Trump, doesn't take new information and allow myself to learn, right? If I was that type of person, then I wouldn't be coming on here talking about how I loved President Trump unconditionally, how I really have no animosity for him, that when he speaks, I feel nothing, because that's what the Naked Mirror mantras gave me the power to do, to go through and I can say, you are a selfish bitch. And a part of me is going to be like, yeah, I am. And that's okay. It's okay for me to be a selfish bitch because I'm human and I'm home. You are an egotistical, maniacal little... Probably. I mean, yeah. I can actually think of a few times in my life where I have been an egotistical, maniacal little... It doesn't bring me any shame. There's no energy to it. It's the same thing, like, so saying those negative things about ourselves actually can be a little bit easier, ironically. So I am ugly, let's say. When you finally decide that you're going to own, I am hideous. I am hideous. I'm fucking hideous, okay? And I think that I used a word similar to that when I was doing the present because of the spray tan sort of thing. Or maybe it was I am fake. Something like that, where it's just like, something like I'm hideously fake, or I don't remember what it was. This is a couple of years ago now. Again, this live stream is because someone asked me to elaborate last week during my live, and I was like, oh, that's going to take a whole live to talk about. So something like I am hideous, for someone who has already lived a life filled with self-loathing, staring into a mirror and owning the fact that you're hideous is actually not going to be that hard for you. What's going to be difficult is when you stand in the mirror and you say, I am gorgeous. I am gorgeous. Because you're not going to believe it. You're not, like, that's the thing about mirror work, is that you do it until you believe it, until you've neutralized all the energy, as in all the crying stops, all the anger stops. Like, if you can't say it and believe it and feel a very, like, the feeling you get is just like, okay, yeah, I'm fucking gorgeous. Yes. And yeah, I'm a selfish little twat sometimes too. That's the authenticity. That's the wholeness, right? I am an extremely spiritual person, very compassionate, very loving, very much a peaceful warrior who gets fiery rage when I am in a room with people who are entitled to be Americans but don't have any concept of the responsibility or privilege that comes with being an American citizen. Okay? So I can be both those things. I don't have to be a love and light, peace, love and harmony, I have positive feelings all the time person. I can have really bad days, but that also doesn't mean that I have to, like, not show my audience my bad days. I came on here earlier this week telling you guys about a bad week that I'd had with my kids, that they just like are not, they're all in the middle of transitioning. My 11-year-old's moving into that preteen, teenager phase. He's going to be 5 in 2 days. He's going from like little kid to kid, and he's as big as an 8-year-old. So like there's a lot of stuff going on there with fighting with him. And then my little toddler, she's turning into a little girl. My whole life is in chaos right now, and I could have taken this week off. I could have just run my challenge. I could have just been behind closed doors, not been posting so much on social media, but that wouldn't have shown you the fact that when you're a pure channel, you can actually deal with all of that. All the spinning plates are not difficult to deal with. Yeah, I'm an overwhelmed mom that has the unlimited resource and abundance of the universe supporting me in my mothering. So which tool do I pull from my toolbox? This is why I say I never have to. So I never have to meditate anymore. I never have to take a mommy time out. I never have to take some time to get the downloads to like fit into place. I can choose to, but I don't have to. And that is the biggest difference between living where I was a few years ago, like having to do I had to, as in I wouldn't be who I am right now had I not done these things. I had to spend almost a whole year every night sitting in front of my mirror, integrating all of the different pieces of me. Metatron shot. Yeah. Oh yeah, Deborah. I'm wearing, this is my friend. I'll just show this off for 1 second. My meditation shawl that Joe Muir makes. There's hand silk, but it's the Metatron one. But yes, it's my meditation shawl. Nice call out. I can sit here and look like Mother Mary if you guys want. Would you receive my message in a more loving way if I was like this? Would I not seem so I don't know, feisty? I'm a fiery, feisty person, okay? I might be an Earth Dragon. I'm really mad that I just found that out, by the way. Apparently 1988 is Earth Dragon, not Fire Dragon. But Earth Dragons ground in your vision, so I'm okay with it, actually. But I am feisty. I am fiery. I'm airy. Like, I have this burning passion to stop having all these conversations behind closed doors. Do you know how many conversations, guys, I've had over the last, like, year about how people don't actually hate President Trump and how it's actually gotten really fucking annoying listening to it? Because all he's done is be a black light. All it's really done is actually reinvigorate a lot of people. We got more people running in Congress this year. Like, let's look at all the good side. You got people who would never have considered themselves congressmen who are running because they're like, oh my God. You got a Congress right now in America that's like more than 80% white males, and most of those white males are, it's like over 90% male, 95% of those are white, and like another 80% of them are lawyers, and then like millionaires. So you got white millionaire lawyers over 60 are the majority of our Congress. On both sides, like in the House and in the Senate. So at very least, it's getting more women to go run. It's getting more men that aren't millionaires, more average. Like, that's who used to be in Congress, was just average citizens. The lawyers weren't all the people in Congress, okay? Yeah, you needed a bit of an education because you were speaking law, so you needed to be able to read and write. But they weren't just like automatically lawyers that were going. It was someone standing up for the community and saying, we have a problem here in West Virginia and we need to fix it. We have a problem here in Utah and we need to fix it. A lot of states also used to not have the Senate be decided by popular vote. That was decided by the Senates of the states, would then send them up. So this is like, I'm giving you a giant history lesson on American history and how politics work. And the craziest part is that there's going to be so many of you that message me that say, I learned more in your hour-long live about how American government works than I learned in any of my high school classes in American politics. And that's like one of those fundamental things that I'm trying to change, right? I know, I get it. I was one of those political kids, though. So I took all of the political science classes in school over the easy history classes. I have a bachelor's degree in political science. Like, this is, like, I'm a massage therapist, and I'm a politician, and I'm a metaphysician. Because all of it is world-changing, right? I change the world by talking about the physical body. Then nobody talks about, hi, I'm a woman, I have tits, and I have a pussy. My husband has a penis. We all have a body. Here's my body. Do you want to see it? Hi, that's my body. It's just a fucking body. We all have them. We don't know how to use them. We don't know why our emotions are the way we are. We don't understand the biofeedback of our neurological centers. We don't get how our brain is developed. Parents get, like, all understand about fevers and, like, how their little babies' bodies work, but they have zero comprehension on how the neurological part of it works. So I have done tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of research. I didn't go to school for it, but I joke all the time that I pretty much have a childhood development degree too, because I've been raising 3 humans and didn't want to raise them the way that I was raised or the way that I was watching my friends raise their kids. So I took it upon myself to, I don't know, be an adult and learn something new. I know it's fucking crazy, right? And I've read and studied tons about, but because I have a basis in sorry, there's like a piece of my hair. In the medical field, that I could read neurological reports and it would make sense to me because I had the Latin base already. So once you have the Latin base, you can read pretty much anything that has Latin base in it, and you can, for the most part, figure out what the fuck they're talking about. So that meant that I could learn more about childhood development and neuroscience and brain development. And then I'm also metaphysical and have been my whole life. I would stand in this very room doing rituals with my parents when I was a kid. Money rituals, and put coins out during the new moon, and walk around my house turning all the lights on solstice, and connecting to the earth energy and calling in the elements to help. And even if I wasn't praying to God, like realizing that I had an angel or a dragon or whoever with me to sort of help me. And it was my darkest times were all the times that I thought that I was alone. That I thought there was no one, that I had to rely just on my logic. I had to just rely on what my senses were saying. And that's why I so much want to see a government run by people who are trusting all of themselves. They're trusting their intuition, they're trusting their guides, they're trusting each other. There's not just this like constant fighting of like this party is trying to get that party and this one's trying to fuck this one and that one's trying to screw that guy over. None of that is my like goal at all. That's where we are, right? So what did I say? A lot of us talk about that. We talk about where we are, and we don't talk about like, well, then how are we going to get to where we want? Like when we say, what do we want? Oh, I just want to be self-governing. Do you even understand what self-governing would actually imply for you, especially those of you who are used to living off of like, I don't want to say welfare from the state, but like, who would run the water lines? Who would run the electricity? Who would have, like, where would your indoor plumbing go? Who would make sure that the food that you're eating isn't, like, filled with bacteria? Like, would you just have your own farm? The term self-governance on a societal level is fucking bullshit for at least another 500 to 1,000 years. Our society, our species, can't handle that. So y'all sitting there in your love and light tunnels talking about how you teach people how to self-govern, yeah, within their own homes, within their own lives, absolutely. But don't say that you're a leader, because you're not a leader. A leader is trying to affect change for everybody, right? A leader is trying to change the fucking world, not because it's going to benefit her, but because she knows that the world needs to be a better place, or it just lights her up, or the world right now makes her so sick that she's like, you know what, I'm going to align my will with the divine will of making this place a better place, because I honestly can't stand to live here. And if I'm going to live here, then I might as well make it better. Right? That's different than governing your own life, like self-governing within your own, like handling, like, yeah, that's elementary school. Okay. Many people here, you've been in elementary school to junior high for like a decade, and it's where you're comfortable. It's where you've created your tribe. I don't really like that term because I am not of indigenous descent. You've created your community. There we go. You've created your community. You're the leader of your community. But when it comes to stepping out into the world, showing up to city council meetings, showing up to the government buildings, and like not protesting, but like being there during the times that they have the legislature running, and like the legislature is going right now in Utah. And there have been times where I've gotten phone calls like, hey, can you be at the Capitol this week to be up there while they're having this hearing so that they can see the amount of people that are either for it or against it. Okay, or can you, do you even know who your senator is? Do you know who your representative is? Do you have a relationship with them? Take them out to lunch in the middle of the, not during session, but like in June. Go take your senator out to lunch, like your state senator, and go get to know them. Because then during the session, when you message them, they're going to remember who you are, and you're going to be one of the very few constituents that they actually know your face, right? Get involved with the political campaign. It's not hard. Make phone calls. You have this amazing privilege, so many, and I know that I'm talking about Americans, but I also know that America isn't the only country that has democratic processes of voting, right? Like, let's just look at Brexit for a minute, like, rest in peace, Britain. Sorry, y'all. But you voted, right? France has elections. Even, like, India has elections. But you look at India, and that president was very, like, he won overwhelming majority, but now it's his second term and he's doing all this shit that nobody agrees with, like making it so that if you're Muslim you can't even have Indian citizenship and shit. Like, I don't agree with any of that, but can I look at that person and still feel that they are a whole and complete person and they deserve my unconditional love as a part of the Shiva of this universe, as knowing that if I hold hatred in my heart for someone, like there's that ancient proverb, right? I know that usually it goes to Buddha, so we'll just say Buddha. I don't know who it really is. But there's that ancient proverb that says, when you hold on to anger or hatred, it's like drinking poison expecting the other person to die. That's like half of America has been, no, all of America, because then there's the half that doesn't like what they want, right? It's just like we're in this middle, we're in a cesspool of people drinking poison, expecting other people to die because we all just hate each other and we're isolated, and we were taught to be isolated. Again, Americans, go do some history. Like, just go look up your history, just like from 1850 to 1970s. We have so much power and authority as Americans because we were isolated. Therefore, we have been raised on the values of isolationism, which means that we don't really know how to work together, which is why we're so, I gotta leave the tribe and go figure out who I am on my own, and then probably never go back to that tribe. I gotta go figure out my own tribe. Or I gotta leave my home and my own community. I gotta leave my parents. I have to have created all this suffering in my life, so I have a big reason to leave my parents so that I can find my real people. Your people are your neighbors. Your neighbors. Do you know your neighbors? Have you met your neighbors? Are you afraid of your neighbors? Do you love your neighbor? So the invocation that I want to do today, I know it says love thy enemy, but I really want to do like more of a love thy neighbor sort of thing, because I think that we also have a lot of complacency and a lot of like, we choose where we're going to live for ourselves, but again, we don't take the time to go get to know our community. We don't get to know those people, and we don't love them. And then we wonder why things are going wrong, or we just get mad when the government does something, right? But we don't understand why they did it. We're not taking the time to figure out their side of the story, and then even our own side of the stories. So many of us have never taken the time to actually create a value system, which is why politics are something that we try to like stay away from, because people who are politically involved tend to be very hard line to their values. But that's usually only if you're looking in one direction. Like, are they conservative or are they liberal? Or are they, you know, are they right wing? Are they left wing? And we forget that it's much more of a like community situation versus like anarchy independent situation, and then liberal mindset to conservative mindset. It's much more, again, guys, I posted my results on the thing. Go take it. It's like a 32 question quiz. Quadrants of like where you land. I land almost all the way at the bottom of sovereignty, liberal, anarchy. And then I'm actually over to the right in conservatism because I don't think that I should have to pay for a lot of the programs that are happening, because those programs only exist because of the fear that we can't support ourselves, which is its own thing. And you can love President Trump. You can love the asshole who cut you off because you love yourself. So Marina, if you're watching, if you ever watch, how do I balance not liking somebody or fundamentally disagreeing with them in a values way, but still knowing in my heart and in my bones that I unconditionally love them? It's because when I look in the mirror, I know in my bones that I unconditionally love myself and that the world is just a reflection of what I'm creating. So I choose not to hate people. I choose to live in a vibration of, if there's something about you that's triggering me, then that's an indication to me that I have work that I need to do on myself, that I need to pull up the video that pissed me off that you did and write down the things about the video that made me mad or the energies that I felt, and then go stand naked in front of a mirror and tell myself that I am all those things, because I am a whole, fully integrated person. And because of that, all of the aspects of my psyche that used to be all fragmented, they're all talking together, right? Like, I'm sure that the way that I describe how I work throughout the day, some people would be like, she's fucking schizophrenic. Except for that I don't have all of the other qualities of schizophrenia when they're like really, they can't function here in 3D. That's the big difference. So if anyone's like afraid of opening their psychic centers, you're like afraid of being more intuitive, you're afraid of losing your logic, you need to trust that you can open those and still stay grounded in your 3D life. Like, you can still know how to function even if you're now writing your to-do list because your alien best friend is helping you channel it for your highest timeline, but you're still able to finish the to-do list, right? Hey Matt, hey Stephanie, hi everybody. So the dragon invocation today is going to be for love thy enemy, but mostly for love thy neighbor. Like, just love thy neighbor. Anything is possible. We have the most beautiful opportunity to lead this new golden age, to be the leaders, to be the ones who hold up the scaffolding, who help build all the pieces, who make the decisions, hire the contractors, and then, yeah, maybe we go out and we ask the general society, like, what color should we paint the wallpaper? Or paint the interior? What color palette should we use? But I can tell you, as someone who's stepped up as a leader for leaders, leadership isn't just like inherent in every person. It's so terrifying that it's gonna need to be more than just me saying that it's safe for you to show up as a metaphysical, super conscious political leader. Okay? I know a lot of the times I end up talking about, like, people are always like, Caryn, do you really think that politics is where they have the power? Blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe not, but I'm going to try. I want to infiltrate the political system. I want to create a UN that actually matters. I want to open all the borders, create a intergalactic council eventually, but for now, just a planetary one. I have big goals that, yeah, they all involve governments. They all involve politics. So for me, yes, I think that governments affect change because, again, look at Brexit. Like, I had someone say that to me the other day and I almost threw my phone because I was so mad that they had the audacity to tell me that my vision My fucking vision of being president of the United States or of some sort of planetary council, of being a high leader in one of those councils, was silly because government isn't where change is affected. Bullshit. Bullshit. You pay taxes, right? So that's government. You drive on roads, that's government. You use the electricity, that's government. You don't exist as a person here in America without the government being a part of your life. Like, there are literally women in my neighborhood that don't have social security numbers or birth certificates because they were born in an FLDS family. They don't fucking exist because the government doesn't know they exist. So they can't get jobs, they can't get a car, they can't get a driver's license, they can't do any of that shit. So for you to tell me that I can't affect change through government because government doesn't make decisions means that you are a fucking moron. And I am a fucking moron. And I will own that I am a fucking moron. I will own it. And I will be mad at you for thinking that I can't affect change. But I'm allowed to be mad at you just like I'm allowed to be mad at my husband or mad at my kids. I can be pissed the fuck off at my child for coloring and Sharpie marker all over my house. But that doesn't mean I don't love her. Maybe I should have opened with that. President Trump is like a kid, right? You get mad at the kids? Yeah, you get fucking mad at the kids. Do you love them anyway? Yeah. Because they don't know any better. They don't have the tools. They haven't been taught. And we want to say, oh, he's a 70-year-old man. He should know better. Excuse me, how many of y'all didn't know any better? Remember 4 years ago when he got elected? I didn't know any better. I only knew what I knew at the time. So why would I be trying to change the past when I can have so much more effective, powerful change on the future? By recognizing where we are now and making plans to change it, instead of sitting there fighting about how we got to where we are. It's fascinating. You should know it. Honestly, if I blew your mind in any way, please let me know, because I will give you resources. Because this is a huge reason why I homeschool, because we're not teaching our kids how to take over this country or this world. We're not teaching them how it works. Like, what are the rules to this game? How do the laws work? Why are there so many of them? It's so complicated. But that's just fear. Saying something so complicated is just you being afraid of it. There's nothing that you can't figure it out. You're a god. And if more people who say that, you know, so many people, oh, I'm not a money person, or all those people that are asking, I'm a metaphysical badass, but could you tell me how to file my LLC? So you have all the knowledge of the entire universe, the access to it when you channel, but your guides never told you to use Google? Because we're afraid of doing it wrong. We're afraid of fucking up. We're afraid of filing our taxes wrong. Like, what's going to happen? The IRS is going to audit you and you're going to owe more money. Who gives a shit? There's so much fear around paperwork. There's so much fear around bureaucracy. There's so much fear around the government. There's so much fear around the laws. That all comes from misunderstanding, a lack of teaching. And yeah, maybe that was planned, okay? Maybe the public school system was really just created to make a whole bunch of mindless soldiers that were going to go die for their country on the basis of patriotism. But once you know something, you can remove it. That's the fundamental baseline of all of the work y'all do. Bring your subconscious into your conscious so that you can work on it. So if we know now what we didn't know then now we can do something about it. If I know now that the easiest way to affect change is to get involved, then no one and nothing is going to stop me from figuring out how to get involved. Where am I of best service? Is it being in city council? Is it being on the school board? Is it being a mayor? Is it being a senator? Is it not being any of those things and being a lobbyist for a cause? Because we didn't even talk about that. That's a whole other part of the government, especially here in America. Do you know how many senators then become lobbyists because they're getting paid a fuck ton of money from whatever corporation it was that they were already bolstering when they were senators? Like, that's where all the corruption and shit is. So you say behind closed doors you want to change all this corruption, but who's willing to actually go in there and work behind those closed doors to fix the corruption? So I want to do a dragon invocation right now. I'm not exactly what, like, it's going to be love thy neighbor, love thy enemy, get involved in your community, all of those things, because all of them are the same energy frequency. And actually, we're going to pull a dragon real quick. Instagram, I really fucking hope I don't cut away. We're going to pull a dragon really quick to see which dragon kind of wraps everything that I just set up into a nice, beautiful dragon package that we can then do an invocation for and send you guys on your way on this. Well, it's snowing as fuck at my house this Sunday morning. Okay, here it is. Okay, ooh, I like it. So here we go, Instagram down here for you. This is the aquamarine dragon from Neptune. So seahorses are dragons. Enables you to access your deepest soul wisdom. Spirituality and wisdom are available to you. Develop your psychic abilities and receive ineffable soul knowledge. So this, I love this because there are so many of you guys who have been leaders in past lives that this is going to help pull that in for you. That unconditional love for your people, right? A queen loves her people, like a good queen, right? A goddess loves all of the people on earth. Like, God's supposed to love everyone, right? So if we're all gods, then let's love each other. Let's try to get past the human emotion of hatred and on to the godly emotion of unconditional love. I love you unconditionally. How can you teach to your people that you teach unconditional love, but then the second that President Trump comes online, you're like, fuck you, you're a moron, you're screaming at the TV and you slam the TV off. You're not teaching those. That seems like a whole lot of conditions to me. So then you're not being honest, you're not staying in your own integrity, you're not holding your own values, then you're wondering why people aren't signing up for your projects or why you're being called out and all this other stuff is happening. You're not holding yourself into integrity. You can't preach unconditional love and then put conditions on it. And unfortunately, in the spiritual realm, most conditions are of the political nature. Oh, well, if they don't believe in Planned Parenthood, then they can go burn in hell. But I unconditionally love everybody. Oh, if they don't believe that my food stamp should be paid for, then they can just go fuck themselves. Oh, but love and light. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy everywhere when it comes to that sort of stuff. We need to merge the spiritual and the political. We need to merge the wealthy and the spiritual. We need to stop with all this polarity shit that only the wealthy and corrupt and powerful get into politics, and that only the spiritual and bleeding hearts and poor starving artists are the ones who start nonprofits or want to change the world in that regard. It's not true. It's all it's all meant to keep us separate. It's all meant to keep us in boxes when we don't want to be in boxes. Sorry, I need to start Instagram's live again because it times me. So we're just going to do the invocation now. The invocation, again, we're going to use this dragon from Neptune here, who's going to bring in our soul wisdom, connecting to our soul knowledge, connecting that feeling that you get when someone tells you something and you're like, I don't know how that's true, but I believe you. And then the other dragon that's coming through right now is Thor's red, black, and gold dragon. He is here for protection, keeps you safe in times of rapid change. So everything that I do can be integrated overnight if you just literally overnight if you decide that you're worthy of that level of integration. So what he's saying is that if you're someone, again, where everything I just said for the last hour blew your mind apart and you're just like, I don't know how I will ever rectify all of my, that's the reason why I'm not friends with, or why I don't speak to any of my family, because they're a bunch of hillbilly, redneck, right-wing conservatives. how am I ever going to like love them when I don't agree with them? You can integrate that right now. You can integrate your love for your entire country. You can become like the strongest patriot. You can integrate your love for any corruption in politics. Not that you love the corruption, but you love the people. Because again, everyone's only doing the best that they know how, or that they think is best for, you know, and yeah, you can say all day long, well, it was best for him, but not for everyone else. People aren't taught that. There's a lot of judgment that goes on in the spiritual community once you become conscious of all the people who aren't conscious, of all the people that are still running in their lives. Their program is just constantly in subconscious mode. How are you unconditionally loving 80% of the planet if you judge them because they don't have the tools that you have, that you didn't have yourself 4 years ago, 5 years ago, a decade ago? That's a huge part of this too, is like, do you really think that President Trump knows what it means to be a conscious person? Do you think he's been taught mindfulness? Do you think he's been taught Shiva and Shakti or any of that stuff? Or is it easier to believe that he's never even heard of the term mindfulness, and that actually, it doesn't justify his actions, but can explain the actions, right? So that's a huge thing too. So let's have both of these dragons come in now, helping keep us safe as we burn away lower densities. So this guy, he's all about burning away those low densities so that you can ascend quickly. A time of rapid transformation and transition. Relax, you are safe. So what's being said here is that the soul knowledge that you're going to come into, this invocation is really just going to bring in a whole lot of downloads, a whole lot of clearing, a whole lot of peace, that I can be a peaceful warrior, that I can love my neighbor, that I can be involved in with my neighborhood, that I can be involved with my community, that I can be involved with my country, that I can actually step out and be okay with standing on my own soapboxes politically, even if I mostly have a spiritual community, or vice versa. If I've been working mostly with people who don't talk about spirituality, I can come out and talk about how I use tarot every day, or how I use my automatic writing, and step more fully into that unconditional love for everyone. Like, you don't need to understand me, I love you anyway, and I don't need to understand you, I love you anyway, right? Okay. So everyone take a nice deep breath. Close your eyes and imagine first Thor's red, black, and gold dragon, this big giant dragon who is here to keep this space, like just hold it open for us as we burn away all the low density of hatred, all the low density of, like, maybe you're pissed off now, you don't really care about Trump, you're mad at like the school system because they didn't teach you any of the things you just learned. Maybe you're pissed off for something else, like, let's get that away. Again, hatred and anger, that's drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. So let's move that through, let's transition it and use it to be creative. And then also pull in the soul knowledge, pull in wisdom from other lifetimes when you were a leader, pull in from lifetimes where you did fully understand unconditional love because you decided to go and become a Tibetan monk or Isis priestess, and you weren't involved in the political arena. So how can you merge all of those timelines and merge all of that knowledge that you have to be the most effective leader now, to be a super conscious leader, to be a leader who runs their organization from a space of unconditional love. Love thy neighbor, love thy enemy, love thyself. Nice deep breath in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. One more time, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Ambare, 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 Oh, amore, oh, biddy bum 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 bum. Buddy, bottom bar. Mame, oh, yanane, oh, yanani, andre, oh, buri, yanangaria, hey, mame, ringaro, yambanderi, and yambariam bamberi, Yandongo, Ariambaria, Hiriangaria, Rovoroema, Iriambande, Oroebe, Embiangaro, Viamambere, Omboro, eo. An him hang me way. So now just take a nice deep breath. Unlike other meditations, I never suggest that you ground after a dragon invocation. The buzz that you feel after a meditation is actually your normal vibration. We've been taught that it's scary. It's not. We're taught to ground to keep us back down into density. We don't want to be in density anymore. Density is what's got us to where we are. So as we're pulling in higher codes, you want to just get your physical body to recalibrate. So if you're buzzing, if you're doing, you can just say, my physical body can hold this energy. I just did a whole lot of clearing. It's safe for me to be clearing out. I'm integrating all sorts of soul knowledge, and you don't need to have to take a day off for it. Okay, this is why I say overnight. An 6 hours of sleep is plenty for a lot of my clients to integrate. Like literally, I've cleared entire bloodlines that was integrated overnight, and then the next day she closed like a $20,000 deal. It was crazy. That's the level of transformation that I know that I personally can provide, because I'm providing it for myself, right? Everything that I'm doing for you all, you are benefiting from me integrating my own soul knowledge is what it is. And when we work together in a one-on-one capacity, I'm then able to be that reflection for you. But when we're in a group setting like this, what you're receiving is my soul wisdom then being opening the channels for you. So with that one specific dragon, he's pulling in. So my dragon opened the gateways for your dragon to be able to pull that soul knowledge in. Beautiful. Thanks, Krista. Oh, you're here. Hi, Krista. Let's see. Okay, so that's it. That's what I have for you today. I know that it got a little crazy and ranty on the political side, but not really sorry, because it is an election year in America, and it's part of who I am. If I'm going to show up fearlessly authentic, then you guys get to see the political side of me, because it is a huge, huge part of who I am, and a huge, huge part of my big mission. So I love you all. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.